Hi guys, this is Jesse from The Movement Athlete. In today's video, we'll be showing you some mobility exercises to help you achieve better ring dips. So when looking at the rings dip, one of the first things you'll see is that it requires a significant range of shoulder extension. So in the dip, the shoulder angle and this elbow is tracking backwards, and it starts to create a stretch in the anterior side of the shoulders. So right off the bat, you need to have a proper range of shoulder extension, which will also cross over with flexibility in your pectorals. You also need to be able to have good scapular mobility, right? Because you need to retract your shoulders and push downwards. So mobility to be able to move your scapula is another important item. So without this, your dip is going to have far less range and you won't get much out of it. You'll also need to be able to have some cervical retraction, and that deals with head placement, right? We talked about having poor head placement in the dip, so being able to retract it and neutralize it. And then of course, thoracic extension. If there's a lack of this thoracic extension, there's a roundingness to it, poor posture. So being able to extend the upper body. So we've got 7 different exercises that we'll go over, and you'll be on your way to better dips. These mobility exercises will do a few things. They're going to help introduce and make sure that your shoulders are moving in the correct pathways, and so they're more mobile. It's going to help reveal any weaknesses in the range of motion, and it's also going to gradually introduce force and range into the dips. So we'll take a look at the first set of exercises, and this is for soft tissue work. We'll be using a lacrosse ball in this particular situation. So we're going to be working on shoulder and pec desensitization, and we're going to be integrating good breathing to signal to the brain that this is a normal movement. It increases blood flow. And one of the methods we'll be doing here will be with a lacrosse ball digging into the pecs. And Jeremy is doing this at a pole, but this could also be done at a wall as long as your head is not in the way. It can also be done on the floor. And one of the methods here is doing a 4-second inhalation while he's pressing into the pec. And then he's gonna do a 4-second contraction where he's contracting his muscles and tensing them. And then an 8-second exhalation and relaxation, right? So that's one of the methods. And of course, you wanna make sure that it's not excruciatingly painful. You want to be able to control your breath properly. You can try this with movement, right? You can be moving his limbs. You can be trying this statically, where he's just holding it there and doing 10 breaths or so. You want to find sensitive positions. You don't want to be, if you find the sensitive positions, it'll help desensitize it. And again, making sure that the body and the brain is ready to do this kind of movement. It's going to help improve function. It's going to help the brain perceive that there's no threat in the shoulder or the pecs. So we can also be doing this in the anterior, the side or the posterior sides of the shoulder. And really a good maximum amount of time would be 10 minutes per side. So you're not laying here all day digging into your body. So soft tissue work is the first exercise. The next mobility exercise will be the 90-90 stretch, and it's called that because the elbow angle and the shoulder angle are both like the corner of a square, 90 degrees. And the purpose of this stretch is to help open up and stretch the pec muscle. So Jeremy first started laying off on his stomach at the 90-90, and he rolled away from the floor towards the elbow. And he's breathing and he's holding for a few seconds. The stretch should be felt in the shoulders and the pec, but of course you don't want to be experiencing pain in the shoulder. And the secondary piece to the 90-90 stretch will be to flip the arm the other way, so the palm is face up and it's 90 degrees facing downwards towards his feet. And I'll repeat the same kind of movement. He's going to roll towards his arm and away from the floor. And this is going to stretch the internal rotators of the shoulder. And it's really easy to go too far into this one. So it kind of just pops up out of nowhere. So definitely go at a slow pace into it. Pay attention to your breathing. You don't want your brain and body to perceive this as a threat. So this is the 90-90 stretch with internal rotation. The third mobility exercise will be shoulder circles and scapular retractions. Jeremy's in the sitting position with his arms behind him, and he's just going to do various circular movements of his shoulders, right? He's going backwards, he can go forwards, he can retract them in the back. So it's really just practicing this kind of movement and making sure it's warmed up and ready and mobile. It'll help improve posture for the ring dips. It's going to help you understand how to move the scapula for dips, and again, warm up the area. So when you're on the dips and we're talking about retracting, you'll at least know what kind of movement this is. How do you even retract your scapula together in the back anyway? So being able to do this and warm up this is going to be perfect before doing the dips. The fourth mobility exercise will be scapular pinches with the hands low behind the back. You can see Jeremy has his hands in the small of his back and he's squeezing his scapula together, trying to get his elbows close to touch each other. As hard as that is, it's more of an active flexibility movement from the previous one we did. It'll help stretch out the pecs. And while you're doing this, you might feel different things. You might feel a shoulder stretch, you might feel impingement, you might feel a pec stretch. So again, this kind of exposes where a weakness might be. And again, this is the scapular pinch with the hands low behind the back. The fifth mobility exercise we'll be going over is the tall kneel shoulder extension. So Jeremy is sitting in what's called the tall kneel position on his knees. His hip line is straight and he's right behind the foam roller. So what he's going to do is move his arm to mimic the bottom portion of the dip position. And when he does this, he should not be able to touch the rollers if done properly. So he's just going to do this active flexibility movement, see how high he can raise it without touching the foam roller. And if he does this incorrectly, it means he's got it forward protraction of the shoulders, or maybe he's leaning in the hips forwards, and that's not what you want in dips. This can also be done in the prone position, and this one you can't really cheat this one, right? Because the floor is in the way. So bending the arms and just retracting and mimicking the bottom portion of the dip once again. So he's trying to pull it as far back as you can and actively moving it in that range. Next mobility exercise will be the eccentric push-up, and here we have it with parallettes. It can be done on the trench with 2 boxes, really anything where you can get a deficit, meaning lower than the surface. So Jeremy's going to do a really slow, controlled, maybe 5-6 seconds at least, lowering below the level of his hands. Good, and he can hold the bottom if he wants, and then coming out of this, simply stepping back out to come back to the top, and then you can keep repeating the reps after that. So this will be a controlled stretch of the biceps, the pectorals, and the shoulders in this eccentric push-up with a deficit. The last and 7th mobility exercise that we'll show you are the crab sliders. So in this particular example, we've just made a sliding surface that's smooth enough, and Jeremy's wearing socks so we can slide across the top of it. This exercise will start off in the crab position. He's got straight arms, and what he'll do is he'll slowly extend his hips forwards for 5 seconds, right? He's going to extend slowly for 5 seconds and hold the last position if he can for 5 seconds, and then simply sit back down and then regroup for the next repetition. So pushing back up, slowly sliding forward. He's going to feel a shoulder stretch, a pec stretch, maybe a little bit of strain in the biceps, but that's where you can keep the arms bent if necessary. So extending for 5, holding for 5, and just repeating that particular active flexibility movement. So this will help guard against injury, help promote good control throughout the movement, and really you don't need to get fancy with it. You can use furniture sliders on a rug, you can use socks on a hardwood surface, and like I said, in this case, we just found some whiteboards that are smooth, put some socks on, and slid forward. So you always get points for being resourceful. A couple more points about the crab sliders is that you want to do it controlled and slowly, and the fact that your hips and glutes are so close to the floor is more like a safety net, right? If you slide too fast or too far, you simply just sit down to take that weight off of your shoulders and hands immediately. So it's really important that you gradually test the range you're able to do and sit down immediately if there's an emergency, right? You don't want to be hurting your shoulders and sliding out too fast, and then you can't train any dips for a while. Thanks for tuning in to watch the 7 great mobility exercises to help you do better ring dips. And these can be used as a warm-up beforehand. We looked at mobilizing the area through desensitization with the lacrosse ball. We looked at both active and passive flexibility. So these will help expose weaknesses, and just pay attention to where your limitations are and where your weaknesses are, and spend more time on those areas, and then you'll find yourself with the better ring dips soon after. Real quick, if you guys liked what you saw here, please click the link in the description below. It'll take you to a free course that's got a lot of guides, challenges, and resources for how to learn more calisthenic and bodyweight training skills. It's going to help you get stronger, fitter, more mobile, happier, and it'll help you achieve your fitness goals. So see you inside.